Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UE's horizon, watching the strange ship approach through the view screen. The vessel looked nothing like human ships. It was smooth and curved, almost like a giant pearl floating in space. Doctor. Lisa Park stood beside him, her hands shaking slightly as she checked her translation device for the 100th time. "This is it," she whispered. First contact with an alien race. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in musical tones that the computer quickly translated into English. "Greetings, unknown vessels. I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Trade Federation. We wish to establish peaceful relations with your species." Jake felt his heart racing. After centuries of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. He activated the communication system. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We welcome peaceful contact with your people." Captain Ben Taylor, the ship's military advisor, frowned as he studied the readings from the alien vessel. "Sir, they're not showing any weapons. Their ship seems to be purely civilian." Dr. Park nodded excitedly. "This is exactly what we hoped for. A peaceful first contact." Over the next few hours, Ambassador Kethvar explained the basics of galactic civilization. There were hundreds of species spread across thousands of worlds. They traded with each other, shared knowledge, and lived in relative harmony. The Zephyrians had been exploring this region of space when they detected human radio signals. "We are curious about your species," Kethvar said through the translator. "Perhaps we can arrange a meeting to discuss trade and cultural exchange." Jake agreed immediately. They arranged to meet at a neutral location, a small asteroid field between their two positions. Both ships would send small shuttles with diplomatic teams. What Jake didn't know was that this was all part of a careful test. The Zephyrians had been studying human broadcasts for months. They had learned about human history, their wars, conflicts. But they interpreted everything through their own cultural lens. In Zephyrian society, all relationships began with a small conflict. It was how they measured each other's strength and established who would lead in their partnership. The conflict was always limited, always controlled. Both sides would fight briefly, take some losses, and then negotiate based on their performance. Kethvar had studied human military history and believed he understood their species. Humans seemed to fight often, but they also made peace afterward. The Zephyrians planned to test human resolve with a small territorial dispute. They would claim mining rights to a few asteroids. The humans would object. They would have a brief skirmish, and then they could begin real negotiations. The meeting took place on a large asteroid that both sides had cleared for landing. Ambassador Kethvar brought a small team of advisors. Commander Morrison brought Dr. Park and a few security officers. The first few hours went well. Both sides exchanged basic information about their cultures. The Zephyrians learned that humans were relatively young as a spacefaring species, having only left their home planet a few hundred years ago. The humans learned that the Zephyrians were traders and explorers who had been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years. Then Kethvar began the test. "There is one small matter we must discuss," he said carefully. "Our surveys show that several asteroids in this region contain valuable minerals. According to galactic law, the first species to claim them has mining rights." Dr. Park translated quickly. "He's talking about the asteroids where we've been mining for the past 5 years. Jake felt his jaw tighten. "Those are human claims. We've had mining operations there since we first arrived in this system." Kethvar nodded, as if he had expected this response. "Perhaps we can reach an agreement. We propose joint mining operations. We will provide the technology. You will provide the labor." Captain Taylor stepped forward. "Sir, they're trying to take our mining claims. This is clearly a hostile act." Jake looked at the alien ambassador. The translator was having trouble with some of the more complex emotions in Kethver's speech, but Jake could sense that this was more than just a simple misunderstanding. "Ambassador," Jake said slowly, "those mining claims belong to human colonists. Families depend on that income. We cannot simply give them up." Kethver seemed pleased by this response. In his mind, the test was proceeding perfectly. The humans were showing appropriate resistance. Soon they would have a small conflict, and then they could begin real negotiations. "I understand your position," Kethver said. "However, we have superior technology and greater experience in space mining. Perhaps a demonstration of our capabilities would help you understand the benefits of cooperation." What happened next would be talked about in alien diplomatic circles for generations. Kethvar ordered his ship to fire a single warning shot near one of the human mining stations. It was meant to be a minor show of force, the kind of gesture that would lead to a brief skirmish, and then negotiations. Jake watched the energy beam flash across space and strike near the mining station. In his mind, this was not a test or a diplomatic gesture. This was an act of war. "They just fired on our people," Captain Taylor said, his voice filled with anger. Dr. Park was frantically trying to understand what was happening. "Wait, maybe. This is some kind of cultural misunderstanding. Maybe they're trying to communicate something." But Jake was already moving. He activated the emergency communication system and sent a message directly to Earth Command. "This is Commander Morrison of the U.S. Horizon. We are under attack by hostile alien forces. Request immediate military support." Within minutes, the message reached Earth. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Force was mobilizing. 3 full battle fleets began preparing for departure. The largest military force in human history was about to descend on a single alien trading vessel. Kethver watched the human response with growing confusion. Instead of sending a few ships to engage in a brief skirmish, the humans seemed to be calling for reinforcements. His sensors detected massive energy signatures heading toward their position. "Commander Morrison," Kethver said through the communication. "System, perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. We fired only a warning shot. We meant no harm to your people." Jake's response chilled the alien ambassador to his core. "You fired on human civilians. You have declared war on the human race. We will respond with overwhelming force." Dr. Park tried to intervene. "Commander, I think they're trying to tell us this was some kind of mistake. Maybe we should try to understand their intentions before we escalate this." But Jake was thinking like a military commander. In his training, the first rule of engagement was to never let the enemy gain an advantage. If the aliens thought they could intimidate humans with shows of force, they needed to learn otherwise. "Dr. Park, they fired on our people. In human culture, that means they want to fight. We're going to give them one they'll never forget." Captain Taylor was already calculating the firepower that would soon arrive. "Sir, the fleet will be here in 18 hours. We'll have enough firepower to sterilize their entire home system." Kethver listened to the translated conversation with growing horror. He had studied human military history, but he had misunderstood what he was seeing. He thought human wars were like Zephyrian conflicts, limited, controlled, with clear rules about when to stop fighting. He didn't understand that humans had spent their entire history perfecting the art of total war. When humans fought, they fought to win completely. They didn't stop until their enemy was destroyed or surrendered unconditionally. "Commander Morrison," Kethver said desperately, "we surrender. We withdraw our claim to the mining rights. There is no need for further conflict." Jake paused. The alien surrender was so quick, so complete, that it caught him off guard. But Captain Taylor was already shaking his head. "Sir, this could be a trick. They might be trying to buy time to bring their own reinforcements." Jake nodded. We'll maintain our defensive posture until the fleet arrives. Then we'll make sure they understand that humans don't respond well to threats." As the U.S. Horizon waited for reinforcements, Ambassador Keffer sent an urgent message to his government. The message was simple but terrifying. The humans don't understand the limits of force. They are preparing to destroy us over a minor territorial dispute. We have encountered a species that treats every conflict as if it were a fight for survival. Recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. The test that was supposed to establish peaceful relations had instead revealed something that would terrify the galaxy. Humans didn't just refuse to lose. They refused to acknowledge that anything less than total victory was acceptable. The Zephyrians had encountered a species that saw every conflict as existential, and they had no idea how to deal with such a mindset. In 18 hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled would arrive to face a single alien trading vessel. The age of human expansion into the galaxy was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn why humans had conquered their own planet so completely. General Ryan Clark sat in his office on Earth, staring at reports that made no sense to him. In the 6 months since first contact with the Zephyrians, 17 different alien species had approached human space. Every single one had ended up fleeing in terror after what they called misunderstandings. Dr. Amy Foster knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She was the anthropologist assigned to study these strange alien reactions, and she looked tired. "General, we have another incident," she said, dropping a thick file on his desk. "The Kalari Empire tried to establish trade relations with the colony on New Boston." Ryan sighed. "Let me guess. They did something that we interpreted as hostile, and now they're running away, screaming about human aggression." Amy nodded grimly. "It's worse this time. The Kalari sent a single ship to blockade the mining station. According to their culture, this was supposed to be a negotiation tactic. They expected us to send a few ships, have a brief standoff, and then sit down to work out trade agreements. And instead, Colonel Steve Martinez interpreted it as an act of war. He called for immediate military support and began planning a full-scale invasion of 3 Kalari systems. Ryan put his head in his hands. How many ships did we send? 250 warships, plus support vessels. The entire Third Fleet is currently heading toward Kalari space with orders to neutralize the threat and establish human dominance in the region. Through the window, Ryan could see the bustling spaceport where civilian ships came and went. Earth seemed so peaceful, so normal. It was hard to believe that their species was apparently terrorizing the galaxy. "Dr. Foster, help me understand this. Why do all these alien species keep making the same mistake?" Amy opened her file and pulled out several documents. "I've been studying their diplomatic protocols. Ryan, these species have been interacting with each other for thousands of years. They've developed incredibly complex rules about how conflicts work." She spread out charts showing different alien cultures. "Look at this. The Zephyrians have a 47-step process for resolving territorial disputes. The Kalari have an entire legal system based on symbolic conflicts. The Threnody actually have mathematical formulas for determining appropriate responses to different types of aggression." Ryan studied the charts. "So they're all operating under the assumption that everyone else follows the same rules?" "Exactly. And humans don't follow any rules at all. We don't have a concept of appropriate force. When we fight to win completely." A communication alert chimed on Ryan's desk. He activated the screen and saw Council Speaker Threndai, the leader of something called the Galactic Mediation Assembly. The alien looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a tree, with long, delicate limbs and bark-like skin. "General Clark," Threndai said through the translator, "we must discuss the recent actions of your species. The Kalari Empire has requested immediate mediation before your fleet arrives in their space. Ryan tried to keep his voice calm. Council Speaker, the Kalari blockaded one of our mining operations. We're simply responding to their aggression. General, they sent one ship to establish negotiating position. Your response is to invade 3 star systems. This is not proportional. Proportional to what? They attacked our people. In human culture, that means they want a war. We're giving them one. Amy watched the alien's reaction carefully. Threndai's translator was struggling with the concept Ryan had just expressed. Finally, the alien spoke again. General Clark, do you understand that the Kalari ship fired no weapons? They simply positioned themselves near your mining station as a symbolic gesture? Ryan felt his anger rising. They blockaded our people. They prevented our ships from moving freely. That's an act of war. But they expected you to send a few ships to challenge the blockade. Then both sides would negotiate. This is how civilized species resolve disputes. Well, we're not like other species. When someone threatens us, we make sure they can't do it again. The communication ended abruptly. Amy could see that Threndai was too shocked to continue the conversation. Ryan, do you see what just happened? You basically told them that humans don't understand the concept of limited conflict. Before Ryan could respond, another alert came through. This time, it was Colonel Martinez, calling from the new Boston colony. General, we have a situation. The Kalari Empire has surrendered. They're offering to give us mining rights to 12 systems in exchange for calling off our invasion. Ryan blinked. They're surrendering? We haven't even reached their space yet. That's not all, sir. They're also offering to pay tribute to Earth and requesting permission to establish an embassy, to negotiate formal surrender terms. Amy was frantically taking notes. Ryan, ask him what the Kalari said about our response. Colonel, what exactly did the Kalari say when they surrendered? Martinez's voice was confused. They said something about humans not understanding the natural limits of conflict. They seem to think we're some kind of unstoppable war machine that won't stop until we've conquered the galaxy. After the call ended, Amy showed Ryan more reports from other incidents. The pattern was always the same. Alien species would approach humans with what they considered normal diplomatic procedures. Humans would interpret these procedures as acts of war and respond with overwhelming force. The aliens would immediately surrender rather than face what they saw as an insane escalation. Amy, are we really that different from other species? She pulled out a historical analysis she had been working on. Ryan, I've been studying human military history compared to what we know about alien conflicts. Other species seem to have natural stopping points. They fight until they've proven their point, then they negotiate. And humans? We fight until we win, completely. We don't have stopping points. We have victory conditions. Ryan thought about human history. Every major war had ended with one side completely defeating the other. Even when humans tried to limit conflicts, they usually escalated anyway. Dr. Foster, show me something. How do other species typically handle territorial disputes? Amy pulled up a case study. The Vorthan Empire and the Selnari Republic had a dispute over mining rights in the Kepler system. They fought for 3 weeks. Each side destroyed exactly 12 ships. Then they sat down and negotiated a treaty that gave each side half the mining rights. And if humans had been involved, we would have kept fighting until we controlled the entire Kepler system. We would have built military bases to prevent future challenges. And we would have demanded that both species acknowledge human dominance in the region. Ryan was starting to understand why the aliens were so afraid. So, when we respond to their tests with full military force, they think we're insane. Worse than that, they think we're incapable of stopping. From their perspective, humans are a species that treats every conflict as if it were a fight for survival. Another communication alert interrupted them. This time, it was from the Galactic Mediation Assembly. Threndai appeared on screen again. But this time, he was accompanied by representatives from dozens of other species. General Clark, we have convened an emergency session to discuss the human situation. We are prepared to offer your species significant trade concessions and territorial rights in exchange for your agreement to follow standard galactic conflict resolution protocols. Ryan looked at Amy, who shook her head. General, they're trying to bribe us to act normal. They're so afraid of our response to conflict that they're willing to give us whatever we want to avoid fighting us. Council Speaker, Ryan said carefully, we appreciate your offer, but we're not sure we understand what you're asking for. We are asking you to agree to proportional responses. When there is a dispute, you will send an appropriate number of ships, engage in limited conflict, and then negotiate based on the results. Amy whispered to Ryan, they want us to follow their rules about how much force to use. Council Speaker, I don't think humans understand the concept of proportional response. When we fight to win. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, one of the other aliens spoke. General Clark, are you telling us that humans cannot limit their use of force? I'm telling you that we don't see the point in limited force. If something is worth fighting for, it's worth winning completely. The communication ended immediately. Amy watched her instruments as emergency signals began flashing across the galaxy. The aliens were activating something called the Seer Protocol. Ryan, I think we just told the entire galaxy that humans don't understand when to stop fighting. Over the following days, reports came in from across human space. Alien species were withdrawing from any territory that might bring them into conflict with humans. Trade negotiations were being conducted through intermediaries. Some species were offering tribute payments to Earth just to ensure they would never have to fight humans. Dr. Foster compiled her final report on the situation. General, we've created a cascade effect. Every alien species that has tested us has learned the same lesson. Humans don't understand the limits of force. They're treating us like a natural disaster that can't be reasoned with. Ryan looked at the reports of alien species fleeing human space. Amy, are we really that dangerous? We're not dangerous in the way they think. We're not aggressive conquerors, but we're completely incompatible with their under. Dr. Helen Brooks had never expected to become the galaxy's leading expert on human warfare. As a military historian at the University of Mars, she had spent her career studying ancient battles and forgotten conflicts. Now she found herself standing in front of a room full of alien scientists, trying to explain why humans scared them so much. Research Prime Veltar led the study group. The alien looked like a giant jellyfish with multiple eyes floating around its transparent body. Its species, the Kethmari, had been peaceful for over 10,000 years. They had volunteered to study humans because they thought their peaceful nature would help them understand human aggression. Dr. Brooks, Veltar said through the translation device, we have reviewed your historical records. We are confused by what we see. Can you explain why humans developed such destructive warfare? Helen looked around the room at dozens of alien scientists from different species. They had been studying human culture for months, trying to understand why humans responded to conflict so differently than everyone else in the galaxy. Research Prime, I think you're asking the wrong question. You're assuming that humans developed destructive warfare as a choice, but for us, it was survival. She activated a holographic display showing Earth during various historical periods. Look at this. Humans evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. We had to compete with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and each other. The aliens watched images of human wars throughout history. Helen could see them becoming more disturbed as the presentation continued. For humans, Warfare wasn't a political tool. It was how we survived. The tribes that fought the hardest were the ones that long enough to have children. Admiral Paul Richardson sat in the back of the room, watching the alien reactions. He had been invited to provide military perspective on human combat doctrine. What he saw worried him. The aliens weren't just studying human warfare. They were trying to find ways to defend against it. "Dr. Brooks," said another alien scientist, "we understand that humans had to fight to survive. But why did you never develop limits on warfare? Every other species we know has natural stopping points in conflict." Helen paused, trying to find the right words. "Because we never had the luxury of limited conflict. When humans fought, it was usually a fight for survival. If you didn't win completely, you died." She showed them images of human battles throughout history. "Look at this battle from our medieval period. Two armies meet, they fight. One side wins completely. The losing side doesn't get to negotiate. They get destroyed or enslaved." Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was also in the room, representing the younger generation of human military officers. She had been quiet during most of the presentation, but now she spoke up. "I think you're overcomplicating this," she said casually. "Humans fight. To win, that's it. We don't see the point in fighting halfway." The alien scientists turned to look at her. Veltar's eyes focused on the young human officer. "Lieutenant Sullivan, can you explain what you mean by fighting halfway?" Kate shrugged. "Well, like what you guys do. You fight for a while, take some losses, then sit down and negotiate. What's the point of that? If you're going to fight, you might as well win." Admiral Richardson tried to intervene. "Lieutenant, I think they're trying to understand our military doctrine." "I am explaining our military doctrine, sir. We fight to win. If the enemy surrenders, great. If they don't, we keep fighting until they can't fight anymore." The silence in the room was deafening. Helen could see the alien scientists exchanging what looked like worried glances. "Lieutenant Sullivan," Veltar said carefully, "what if the enemy agrees to negotiate after a brief conflict?" Kate looked confused. "Why would we negotiate with an enemy? If they attacked us, we need to make sure they can't do it again. And how do you ensure they cannot attack again?" Kate's answer sent several alien scientists into what looked like panic. "We destroy their ability to make war. We take their weapons, occupy their territory, and make sure they understand that attacking humans has consequences." Dr. Brooks tried to soften the impact. "What Lieutenant Sullivan is describing is our concept of decisive victory. We prefer to end conflicts permanently rather than allow them to continue." But the damage was done. The aliens were now completely focused on Kate, and she seemed happy to explain human military thinking. "Dr. Brooks is being too polite," Kate said. "The truth is, we don't understand why anyone would want to fight a limited war. If someone is your enemy, you should defeat them completely. Otherwise, they'll just attack you again later." "Lieutenant," another alien scientist asked, "what if the conflict is over something minor, a trade dispute or territorial disagreement?" Kate laughed. "There's no such thing as a minor conflict. If it's worth fighting about, it's worth winning." Admiral Richardson was getting worried about how the aliens were reacting. "Perhaps we should explain that humans do try to avoid unnecessary conflicts." "With respect, sir," Kate said, "we avoid conflicts by making sure everyone knows what happens if they fight us. It's called deterrence. And what happens if deterrence fails?" Veltar asked. Kate's casual response would be quoted in alien military academies for generations. "Then we glass their planet and move on." The room erupted in panic. Several alien scientists rushed out of the room. Others began frantically taking notes. Veltar's eyes were spinning wildly as it tried to process what it had just heard. "Lieutenant Sullivan," Veltar said shakily. Did you just say that humans would destroy entire planets in response to conflict? Kate looked around the room, finally, realizing that she had said something wrong. I mean, we don't prefer to do that. But if someone attacks us and won't surrender, we'll do whatever it takes to win, Helen tried to explain. She's talking about extreme scenarios. Humans don't normally destroy planets. But you have the capability to do so? Veltar Press. Admiral Richardson nodded grimly. We have weapons that can crack planets, yes. But we only use them as a last resort. And who decides when that last resort is necessary? The field commander, Kate said helpfully. If the enemy won't surrender and keeps fighting, the local commander can authorize planetary bombardment. The remaining alien scientists were now openly terrified. Helen realized that Kate's casual attitude toward planet-killing weapons was more frightening to them than the weapons themselves. Research Prime, Helen said. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Humans don't want to destroy planets. We want to end conflicts quickly and decisively. Dr. Brooks, Veltar said. Lieutenant Sullivan just explained that a human military officer can decide to destroy an entire world based on their personal judgment of the situation. Helen looked at Kate, who was nodding. That's correct. We trust our officers to make the right decisions in combat. And you see nothing wrong with giving individuals the power to commit genocide? Kate looked genuinely confused. If they're fighting us, they're not innocent. Besides, most species surrender before it gets to that point. The study session ended abruptly. The alien scientists needed time to process what they had learned. Helen found herself alone with Admiral Richardson and Lieutenant Sullivan. Kate, do you realize what you just told them? Kate was still confused. I told them the truth. We fight to win, and we have the weapons to back that up. Admiral Richardson sighed. Lieutenant, you just confirmed their worst fears about humanity. They think we're unstable warmongers who can't be trusted with advanced weapons. But, sir, isn't that good? If they're afraid of us, they won't attack us. Helen realized that Kate's attitude was exactly what made humans so terrifying to other species. She genuinely believed that having the ability to destroy planets was a reasonable way to prevent conflicts. Later, Helen received the preliminary report from the alien study group. The conclusions were disturbing. Human warfare appears to be based on the concept of total victory. They do not understand limited conflict, proportional response, or negotiated settlements. They have developed weapons capable of destroying entire star systems, and they have given individual military officers the authority to use these weapons based on their personal judgment of the situation. Most disturbing is their attitude toward these capabilities. They see planet-killing weapons as normal tools of warfare. They express no moral concerns about genocide if it serves their strategic goals. They appear to believe that their ability to destroy entire civilizations is a reasonable way to prevent conflicts. Recommendation: humans should be classified as an existential threat to galactic civilization. They possess both the capability and the willingness to destroy entire species over minor disputes. Their military doctrine is incompatible with civilized warfare. Helen read the report with growing horror. The aliens had completely misunderstood human military culture. They saw human confidence as insanity, human deterrence as a threat, and human military capability as evidence of genocidal intent. She tried to write a response explaining that humans were not the monsters the aliens thought they were. But every time she described human military doctrine, it sounded exactly like what the aliens feared. Humans did fight to win completely. They did have planet-killing weapons. They did give field commanders the authority to use extreme force. And they did believe that their military superiority was the best way to prevent conflicts. The study had Governor Sam Peterson was having the worst day of his political career. What had started as a simple complaint from a mining chief had somehow escalated into an interstellar incident that might destroy his entire colony. The morning had begun. Normally enough. Tony Davis, the chief of the new Dakota mining operation, had stormed into Peterson's office with a complaint that seemed routine. "Governor, we got a problem down at the quantum crystal mines. Some alien prospectors showed up, claiming they have legal rights to our deposits." Peterson had dealt with similar disputes before. Usually they involved paperwork errors or overlapping claims that could be resolved through negotiation. "What kind of aliens, Tony?" "They call themselves the hegemony of Crix. Weird-looking things, like giant spiders with too many eyes. They're saying they filed a claim with something called the Galactic Mining Commission 6 months ago." Peterson frowned. 6 months ago? We've been mining those crystals for 5 years. That's what I told them. But they're insisting that galactic law gives them priority because they're a recognized interstellar authority, and we're just a single-planet species. This was exactly the kind of bureaucratic nightmare that Peterson had been dreading since New Dakota joined the human colonial system. "Okay, Tony, let me contact the colonial office and see what our legal options are." What Peterson didn't know was that Dr. Rachel Martinez had been conducting quantum physics experiments in the same mining complex. Her research into quantum field manipulation had been progressing remarkably well. Too well, as it turned out. "Governor," Dr. Martinez said as she entered his office, "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with Tony. I think there might be more to this situation than a simple legal dispute." Peterson looked up from the legal documents he was reviewing. "What do you mean, Dr. Martinez?" "The quantum crystals they're claiming aren't just valuable for mining. They're essential for my research into quantum field manipulation. If we lose access to them, we lose the ability to continue the most advanced physics research in human space." "Rachel, I understand your research is important, but this seems like a matter for lawyers, not scientists." Dr. Martinez pulled out a tablet showing her latest experimental results. "Sam, you don't understand. I've been using those crystals to develop something that could revolutionize human technology. But if the aliens take them, they might also take the research data." Peterson was starting to feel overwhelmed. "Dr. Martinez, what exactly are you working on?" "Quantum reality manipulation. I've figured out how to use quantum fields to alter the fundamental properties of matter and energy. The potential applications are unlimited." Before Peterson could respond, Tony Davis burst back into the office. "Governor, those spider aliens just landed another ship. They're setting up some kind of legal tribunal down at the mine site." Peterson made the decision that would change everything. "Tony, I need you to contact Earth Command. Tell them we have a foreign power trying to seize strategic resources from a human colony." "Sir, should I mention the quantum research?" "Absolutely. Make sure they understand that this isn't just about mining rights. This is about protecting advanced human technology from alien interference." The message that reached Earth Command was alarming. A hostile alien force was attempting to seize quantum research facilities from a human colony. The military response was immediate and overwhelming. Fleet Admiral Lisa Chun received the alert while she was reviewing routine patrol reports. The message from New Dakota changed everything. "Admiral," her aide reported, "we have a code red situation at the New Dakota colony. Alien forces are attempting to seize quantum research facilities. Governor Peterson is requesting immediate military support." Admiral Chun had been briefed on the previous incidents with alien species. She knew that humans had a reputation for overreacting to alien provocations. But this seemed different. What kind of quantum research are we talking about? According to the report, Dr. Martinez has developed weapons that can manipulate quantum fields. The aliens may be trying to steal advanced human military technology. Admiral Chun made the decision that would terrify the galaxy. Activate the emergency response protocol. I want every available ship ready for immediate deployment. Admiral, how many ships should we send? All of them. If the aliens think they can steal human military secrets, they need to learn otherwise. Within hours, the largest human fleet ever assembled was heading toward New Dakota. 300 warships, including the new quantum-enhanced destroyers. That Dr. Martinez's research had made possible. Back on New Dakota, the Crix Tribunal was proceeding according to standard galactic legal procedures. The spider-like aliens had set up a formal arbitration chamber and were carefully reviewing the competing claims. To the mining rights, arbitrator Skex Thigh, the lead Crix legal authority, was confident that this would be a routine matter. The humans were obviously new to galactic law, but they seemed reasonable enough. A few hours of legal proceedings, some minor concessions on both sides, and everyone could go home happy. Governor Peterson, Skex Thigh, said through the translation device, "We have reviewed your mining claims. While we acknowledge that your people have been working these deposits, our claim was filed through proper galactic channels." Peterson was trying to keep the situation calm while he waited for military support. Arbitrator Skex Thigh, our people have invested 5 years of work in these mines. We can't simply abandon them. We are not asking you to abandon them. We propose joint ownership. Your people can continue mining, but the hegemony of Crix will oversee operations and take 60% of the profits. Tony Davis couldn't contain himself. 60%? That's highway robbery. Dr. Martinez was frantically trying to secure her research data. She had received word that the human fleet was coming, but she was worried about what might happen to her quantum experiments if fighting broke out. "Arbitrator," she said, "there's something you need to know. These aren't just ordinary mining operations. We're conducting advanced scientific research here." Skex Thigh's multiple eyes focused on the human scientist. "What kind of research, Doctor?" "Martinez? Quantum field manipulation. We've developed the ability to alter reality at the quantum level." The Crix arbitrator paused. In galactic civilization, quantum manipulation was considered a theoretical impossibility. Most species had tried for millennia to develop such technology without success. "Dr. Martinez, are you claiming that humans have achieved quantum reality manipulation?" "Not just achieved it. We've weaponized it." The silence that followed was profound. Skex Thigh and the other Crix officials were trying to process what they had just heard. Quantum weapons were the stuff of science fiction. No species in galactic history had ever developed them. "Dr. Martinez," Skex Thigh said carefully, "perhaps you could demonstrate this technology?" Rachel looked at Governor Peterson, who nodded. "Show them what we're dealing with here." Dr. Martinez activated a small device from her laboratory. The quantum field generator hummed to life, and suddenly the air in the room began to shimmer. The fundamental properties of space-time were being altered in real time. "This is a minor demonstration," she explained. "We can alter the atomic structure of matter, manipulate energy fields, and even affect the flow of time in localized areas." The Crix officials were backing away from the demonstration. What they were seeing violated everything they understood about physics. "And you have weaponized this technology?" Skex Thigh asked. "The military applications are obvious," Dr. Martinez said. "We can disrupt enemy weapons, alter the structure of enemy ships, and even erase hostile forces from existence by manipulating their quantum signatures." Governor Peterson was starting to realize that this demonstration might not have been wise. The Crix officials looked terrified. "Arbitrator Skex Thigh, I want to emphasize that we only use these capabilities for defensive purposes." But Skex Thigh was no longer listening. The implications of what he had seen were staggering. Humans had developed weapons that could literally rewrite the laws of physics. They could erase entire fleets from existence without leaving a trace. Governor Peterson, Skekthai said, his voice shaking, the hegemony of Crix withdraws all claims to this system. We will file a formal notice with the Galactic Mining Commission canceling our legal proceedings. Tony Davis was confused. Just like that? They're giving up? Dr. Martinez was also puzzled. I thought they would be impressed by our technological achievements. Governor Peterson was getting a bad feeling about the situation. Arbitrator? Is there something wrong? Skekthai was already ordering his people to evacuate. Governor, we have made a terrible mistake. We did not realize that this system contains strategic human military assets. The hegemony of Crix has no wish to interfere with human weapons development. But this is just a mining dispute, Peterson protested. No, Governor. This is a demonstration of human military superiority. We have seen enough. The Crix evacuation was so rapid that they left most of their equipment behind. Within an hour, their ships were fleeing the system at maximum speed. Dr. Martinez was studying the readings from her quantum field generator. Sam, something's wrong. The quantum distortions from my demonstration are spreading beyond the containment field. What does that mean? It means the effects of quantum manipulation are expanding. The entire East. President Karen Williams sat in the Oval Office, staring at a document that made no sense to her. The Galactic Council had just delivered what they called the Human Containment Accord, and every single alien species in the galaxy had signed it. Ambassador Mike Chun knocked on her door and entered, looking exhausted. He had just returned from the galactic capital, where he had spent weeks trying to understand why every alien civilization was suddenly terrified of humanity. Madam President, I have the full report from the council meetings. Karen looked up from the document. Mike, help me understand this. According to this accord, alien species are giving us exclusive rights to 30 star systems, unrestricted access to galactic trade routes, and guaranteed non-interference with human expansion. What's the catch? Mike sat down heavily. The catch is that they never want to fight us. Ever. About anything. And that's bad because they're not doing this out of respect or friendship. They're doing it out of pure terror. Karen read through the accord again. Mike, this gives us everything we could possibly want. Territory, resources, trade rights. Why are you worried? Because of how we got it. Madam President, I've spent the last month talking to alien leaders, and they all say the same thing. They think humans are insane. Dr. Susan Moore, the psychologist who had been studying the alien fear response, was also in the room. She had been documenting the psychological impact of human military doctrine on alien civilizations. Madam President, she said, I think Ambassador Chun is understating the situation. The aliens don't just think we're insane. They think we're an existential threat to the galaxy. Karen was getting frustrated. Dr. Moore, we've never attacked anyone who didn't attack us first. We've tried to be reasonable in all our dealings. With alien species, that's exactly the problem. Our definition of reasonable is completely incompatible with theirs. Mike pulled out his notes from the council meetings. Madam President, let me read you some quotes from alien leaders. He opened to a page marked with several tabs. Supreme Coordinator Zalfik of the Galactic Alliance said, humans treat every conflict as if it were a war for the survival of their species. They cannot be reasoned with because they do not understand the concept of limited response. Karen interrupted, but that's not true. We do understand limited response. Do we? Dr. Moore asked. Madam President, when was the last time humans engaged in a limited conflict? Karen thought about it. Well, there was the situation with the Kalari Empire, where we mobilized 3 fleets to respond to a single ship blockade, Mike pointed out Zephyrian incident, where we prepared to sterilize their home system over a mining dispute, Dr. Moore added. The quantum crisis at New Dakota, where we accidentally created a weapon that could destroy solar systems. Mike said grimly. Karen was starting to understand the pattern. So the aliens think we're dangerous because we always escalate conflicts beyond what they consider reasonable. It's worse than that, Dr. Moore said. They think we're dangerous because we don't understand that there are limits to how much force should be used. Mike continued reading from his notes. Council Speaker Thren Dai said, humans possess weapons that can alter reality itself, and they give individual military officers the authority to use these weapons based on personal judgment. This is not military doctrine. This is chaos. But we trust our officers to make good decisions, Karen protested. Madam President, from the alien perspective, trusting individuals with planet-killing weapons is evidence that we're fundamentally unstable as a species. Dr. Moore pulled out her psychological analysis reports. I've been studying the alien response to human military doctrine. They've identified several characteristics that they find terrifying. She read from her notes. First, humans have no concept of proportional response. We always use maximum available force regardless of the level of threat. That's not true, Karen said. We use appropriate force. Our definition of appropriate includes destroying entire civilizations, Mike pointed out. Dr. Moore continued. Second, humans have developed weapons that violate the fundamental laws of physics, and we're continuing to develop even more dangerous technology. That's just scientific progress, Karen argued. Third, humans give individual commanders the authority to use civilization-ending weapons without oversight or approval from higher authorities. We trust our people to make the right decisions in combat situations. And fourth, Dr. Moore concluded, humans genuinely believe that all of this is reasonable and normal. The room was quiet for a moment. Finally, Karen spoke. Dr. Moore, are you telling me that the aliens are afraid of us because we're competent? I'm telling you that they're afraid of us because we're competent in ways that they find incomprehensible and terrifying. Mike activated a communication device. Madam President, I have Supreme Coordinator Zolfek standing by. He wanted to speak with you directly about the Accord. The screen activated, showing the alien leader. Zolfek looked like a cross between a bird and a crystal formation, with feathers that seemed to be made of living gemstones. President Williams, Zolfek said through the translator, I hope you find the terms of the Accord acceptable. Supreme Coordinator, I appreciate the generous terms, but I'm confused about why you're offering them. President Williams, we are offering these terms because we have learned that conflict with humans is impossible. Impossible? Why? Because humans do not understand when they have won. Every species in the galaxy has rules about when to stop fighting. Humans do not appear to have such rules. Karen looked at Mike and Dr. Moore, then back at the alien leader. Supreme Coordinator, we do stop fighting. We stop when we win. And how do you define victory, President Williams? When the enemy can no longer threaten us. And how do you ensure that the enemy can no longer threaten you? Karen thought about it. We eliminate their ability to make war against us. And if they surrender, we make sure they can't change their minds later. The silence that followed was profound. Zolfek's crystalline feathers were shifting colors, and what the translator indicated was extreme distress. President Williams, do you understand what you just described? I described standard military doctrine. We fight until we achieve decisive victory. You described the complete destruction of enemy civilizations as standard procedure. Karen was genuinely confused. Supreme Coordinator, we don't destroy civilizations. We just make sure they can't attack us again. And how do you make sure they cannot attack you again? We take their weapons, occupy their territory, and restructure their government to ensure compliance with our security requirements. Mike was frantically taking notes as he watched the alien leader's reaction. Zolthek was now displaying colors that the translator couldn't interpret. President Williams, from our perspective, what you describe is the complete subjugation of entire species. We prefer to call it establishing lasting peace. Dr. Moore was watching her instruments as they measured the aliens' stress responses. Zolthek was exhibiting signs of severe psychological trauma from this conversation. Supreme Coordinator, Karen continued, I want to assure you that humans have no desire to conquer the galaxy. We just want to be left alone to pursue our own interests. And if other species interfere with those interests, then we'll deal with the problem appropriately. And what constitutes an appropriate response? Karen thought about recent events. Whatever level of force is necessary to resolve the situation permanently. Zolthek's communication ended abruptly. The alien leader had apparently heard enough. Dr. Moore was studying her readings. Madam President, you just confirmed every fear that alien species have about humanity. How? I was being completely honest about our peaceful intentions. That's exactly the problem. You genuinely believe that what you described represents peaceful intentions. Mike was reviewing his notes from the conversation. Madam President, from the alien perspective, you just told them that humans will completely destroy any species that interferes with human interests, and that you consider this to be reasonable and peaceful behavior. Karen was starting to understand the scope of the misunderstanding. So the aliens are giving us everything we want because they're afraid that if they don't, we'll destroy them? Not just destroy them, Dr. Moore corrected. They're afraid that we'll destroy them and genuinely believe we're being reasonable about it. Over the following days, reports came in from across the galaxy. The fear protocol was being implemented on a massive scale. Alien species were evacuating any territory that might bring them into contact with humans. Trade routes were being rerouted to avoid human space. Some civilizations were relocating entire populations to distant galaxies. Ambassador Chun received a final communication from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Chun, we want you to understand that this is not exile or punishment. This is self-preservation. Humans have proven that they cannot coexist with other species because they do not understand the limits of appropriate behavior. But we want to coexist, Mike protested. Ambassador, you want to coexist under conditions that we find terrifying. You want the right to destroy us if we displease you, and you want us to accept this as normal. Dr. Moore compiled her final report on the situation. The fundamental problem is that humans and aliens have completely incompatible